إجابته الله 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 الله.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. My name is Rabbi Amin and I am here with you once again on The Light of the Quran. As you know, this is Ramadan. Ramadan is the month of the Quran, but it is also the month of blessings, forgiveness, charity, and hopefully gaining rewards to one day enter Jannah. I hope you all have a wonderful day. As always, please feel free to contact us with any questions, comments, or concerns at nrbtvcanada@gmail.com. I hope you guys have a wonderful time learning. Let's listen to our scholars.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajmain. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my brothers and sisters and others in Islam. My name is Zaihan Rashid. I have been invited to talk a little bit about productivity as Muslims, and for that matter as human beings in general. Productivity, why is it important? We have to remember that we have a limited amount of opportunities to do good. As you know, Allah Ta'ala has told us in His beautiful book, in chapter 67, Surah Mulk, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Tabarakalladhi biyadihil mulku wa huwa ala kulli shayin qadir, alladhi khalaqal mawta wal hayat liyabluwakum ayyukum ahsanu amala. I have not created you, Allah Ta'ala, our creators, and informed us, except to see what you do with this opportunity that I've given you in your life. My brothers and sisters, in Ramadan, we have a renewed opportunity to sign on this contract with Allah again. An opportunity to clean off our slate from the past and really to reinvent, almost to replan all of what we may or may not have done. I want to divide in these few minutes, inshallah, the productivity aspect that I hope me and you can all do in this Ramadan into three aspects. The first is the physical part, the second is the spiritual part, and the third is the social part. What do I mean by physical productivity? Physical productivity, if you think about it, in this month itself, we are hugely challenged by lack of sleep, by lack of nutrition, and sometimes lack of time, but that's largely because of bad planning. So how do we become better productive physically? But the first thing I would emphasize upon is look carefully at what you're putting into this machine called the human body. If you put food that is not motivating, not energizing, not nutritious, then you cannot expect this machine to function well. So instead of putting what I would consider tasty and food that you like, I would say that you and me need to look carefully into nutritious food. Food that is actually providing us with energy that lasts several hours, and food that is organic, wholesome, and that's meant to give this body the energy that it needs for the day, so that me and you can do the task that Ramadan we expect to do in Ramadan. So the first thing is to look at food that is wholesome, food that is well planned. I would strongly encourage a food diary, and I would make a plan for the entire week before the week even starts. In fact, if I was smart and me and you were smart, we would plan for the entire Ramadan. We would not just do anything and everything. Suhoor, the morning fasting, starting a meal, is actually vital. It's important. The Prophet ﷺ has told us this suhoor is sunnah, and it was not given to any of the nations before us. So it is actually a blessing from God, Allah, that He has given us this opportunity to regenerate ourselves in the morning before we even start this fasting. Number two component is to look carefully at what you eat when you break your fast. Again, it's not a wise idea because we have kind of low in willpower at that time, and because we have lost focus because of the whole day, perhaps the day that it's gone by without perhaps productivity, then this time becomes a time to gorge on food. People just become out of control. They start eating really what are high energy but sadly poor nutritious foods, and that affects our ability to do the next step, which is vital in Ramadan, which is our evening prayers, in particular Taraweeh, and whatever other ibadah we have in mind. So I would strongly emphasize the importance of taking care of the food that we are putting in our body. Number two component is to manage our sleep well. We have to decide how we are going to cope with the lack of sleep. With the Taraweeh time for most men and those women who pray also in the masjid, and even if they didn't, but if they're praying their Taraweehs, and inshallah most of us are, then the ending time for Taraweeh in this part of the world, North America, it's going to end somewhere about 12:30 to 1 o'clock for some people. And really, if you think about Suhoor time, it comes in about 3:30 or just before it. So really it leaves you only about 2.5 hours to sleep, and your normal, most people sleep 6 to 8 hours. So my suggestion is that we break up our sleep cycle, and this is not the time to go into detail, but most people's sleep cycles is about 1.5 hours, and most of us sleep about 4 of those every night. So since we are not going to be able to do it that way, then I would suggest that we break up into what are called power naps or cat naps during the daytime, and carefully plan 20 minutes to half an hour, and sometimes if you have the opportunity, even longer, so that you can actually make up your sleep to the extent that you stay productive. Number third component is your management of time. Time is really got to be managed well, because there is inevitably going to be a lack of, if you like, productive time. Productivity I define, by the way, as time into energy into focus. So you can't be productive unless you actually have a focus of what you're trying to do. You have to focus. For example, you could focus on the Quran in the morning. You could focus on adhkar, the ritual litanies that we do after salah. You could have a planned set of du'as that you've already planned to say, these are the du'as I want to do, so that you're not caught off guard. You and me should try and memorize most du'as that we do on a regular basis, going in the house, leaving the house, going in the washroom, leaving the washroom, going to sleep, waking up, going to the masjid, leaving the masjid, etc., etc. What that does, you start to put things into place, which actually makes it easy for you as time goes on, because you have a well-planned time for doing things. So Quran doesn't matter whether you do it for 10 minutes, doesn't matter if you want to do it for longer, but if you have it placed carefully in a time frame, you will figure out for yourself what's a good time. Because we want to concentrate on this month. As you know, Allah Ta'ala has told us this month is the month of Quran. So we can't lose out on reading, understanding, and perhaps even participating in some tafsir of the Quran. The third component, again, in the realm of time, is to figure out carefully how do we manage with this lack of exercise that most of us experience. Unfortunately, our community seems to have put exercise in a very back burner when it comes to Ramadan, because we think, well, we don't have energy, we're not sleeping well, and we are having long hours at work. What does exercise mean? Exercise, my brothers and sisters in Islam, exercise actually is not just for the body. More and more research is actually showing that it boosts brain power. It actually produces productivity if you and me were to spend about 20 minutes on a daily basis doing our exercises. How much exercise? You can decide for yourself. You don't have to be particularly going to the gym if you don't have the time. Fast walking, some exercise devoted at home. The idea is you and me try and, if you like, pump up our heart rate. We can't be gently walking and expecting that exercise to help us, although it's better than nothing. Second aspect, and this is the spiritual productivity aspects of our daily lives. How do we think about spiritual productivity? I would divide it into 5 categories. One I mentioned already partly, and that is reading of the Quran. Secondly, it's really a recitation of the regular du'as, adiyat, which you will find easily in more than one website. If you haven't got a definite reliable source, then I would encourage a book called Hisnul Muslim. It's a very common book. It's also an app. You can use that to look up du'as. It's also called Fortress of the Muslim. I believe this is a very good site for looking up du'as if you don't know them already. Third part of the spiritual productivity is really to go beyond the self and look around you to say, how can I encourage others also to take part in some of these beautiful rituals? So you may find some Muslims who are not actually fasting. You may find some Muslims who seem to be fasting, but seem to be fasting only for the stomach. The Prophet ﷺ, in a beautiful hadith, told us Allah Ta'ala doesn't care for a person's fast if all they did was stop eating and drinking. But they didn't stop lying. They didn't stop cheating. They did not stop backbiting. And they really harmed themselves all day spiritually, even though physically they were depriving themselves. The idea of a fast really can be beyond just that physical fasting, which means you took it to the next step and you say, I'm going to have a first-class fast. But how is that going to happen if I haven't even planned it? So my fasting should be as I said earlier, eating healthy food, managing my sleep, and being physically active. Second component is that I am spiritually active. And that means that I'm reciting the Quran, I'm taking part in the salawat for men. I highly encourage all of us to visit the masajid as much as possible. Ideally, we should go for Fajr and Isha at the least. Ideally, we should block time during the day so we get time for reading our salah. My brothers and sisters in Islam, nothing happens without planning. If my day is not being planned around the salah, that's already a problem. If I'm fitting salah in as opposed to fitting the things around the salah, that's really the wrong focus. In Ramadan, I hope that me and you can actually fit our work around our salah. So you prioritize salah. Secondly, in the spiritual productivity component, let's reflect on the purposes of our life. Let us sit quietly for ourselves and think about what we have done so far and what do we plan to do in the future. Let's say I want to plan for the rest of the year. Ramadan is an excellent time to plan. It is a plan. The Prophet ﷺ, I'm sure you all know, the Prophet ﷺ and his Sahaba used to plan for 6 months before Ramadan even came, and that they benefited from what they've done for the 6 months after. So really, if you think about it, it's an entire year's productivity that bases itself simply around that 1 month in which you and me spend time figuring out what we want to do with our lives, done it well, and analyze. Tadabbur is a beautiful ability, to say it in English, to analyze, to reflect on things, to sit quietly and to give yourself time. Don't be distracted. This month, subhanAllah, for a reason or the other, social media, WhatsApps, YouTubes and other things, which sadly are time wasters more often than they are really time reflectors. We don't really use that time well when we have not planned, when we get distracted on our phones, when we get distracted on our computers, when we get turned on with TV channels and start channel surfing. When we waste this time, what are we really saying? We have forgotten perhaps that salah is multiplied by 70. Fard salah is multiplied in terms of its ajr by 70. Similarly, the sunnah salah is actually given reward as if it's a fard salah, and the list goes on. So there is no reason why we should not use this time well, at the least to say to ourselves, there are things I've not been able to do for the whole year. There are times where I have not been able to do stuff that I would love to do. Last but not the least is social productivity. Social productivity is not iftar parties, in case you're thinking, oh, this is a great opportunity to go and chat with my friends, etc. You can, but social productivity really involves taking care, for example, of our responsibilities to the environment around us. How many of our neighbors know anything about Islam? How many of our neighbors know anything about Ramadan? How many of our neighbors know anything about what this month is really all about? How many of our neighbors would love to find out from us what we are doing in this month? Similarly, as I mentioned, alluded earlier, there may be people who are perhaps lonely. There are people who have no families. There are people who are living completely isolated, and they're really depressed about this whole thing. And they're finding no company. How about if I share my iftar with them? How about if I invite them to my home? How about if I invite them to the masjid? How about I go to the local university or college? So many times you'll find students that are spending the Ramadan completely alone because they're away from their family. They have no ability to really take this social aspect of Ramadan. Ramadan, my brothers and sisters in Islam, is not about loneliness. Ramadan is about being a part of a huge community that loves the ibadah, that loves the ability to stand in front of Allah night after night, that loves the ability to eat food together, that loves the ability to encourage each other to good. Perhaps we have told some of our co-workers who know nothing about Islam. They have seen us for 10 years, they realize we become a little cranky and a little sleepy in certain part of the year, but we've never actually told them what it's all about. How about if we write a few words and put it on a notice board, or allow the administration, perhaps ask the administration, can I give my co-workers a little bit of information culturally about Ramadan? And it's certainly something that's well worthwhile, because I'm telling you myself, from the knowledge that I have, the little bit of interaction I have, people love that knowledge. They love to know how the other half of their lives. Last but not the least, think also about giving, charity, sadaqah. And if you've not paid your zakat, excellent time to do it. I ask Allah Ta'ala that we become socially productive in this part of the year, that we become people who have planned our Ramadan, that are people that care for our families. Don't forget your children. Don't forget that they look up to you and me. If we are not doing things that are highly encouraged, particularly going to masjid in this time of the year, if we are not opening the Musaf, the Quran, if we are people that have a bad mouth, we have no control of our tongue, we lose our temper, we have not controlled our anger, we are continuing to backbite, we continue to talk about people that are not present with adverse words, these, my brothers, have a huge effect on people. I ask Allah Ta'ala in this last minute that we become productive people, that we become people close to Allah in this month. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. नशहदु अन ला इलाहा इल्ला अंता अस्तगफिरुका व अतूबु इलैक। जज़ाकल्लाह खैर।
فمحمدنا هو سيدنا والعز لنا لإجابته الله